Hey. All right. In this episode, we are going to discuss the art and science of relationship coaching. What the heck is that? And a lot of people ask me, what is relationship coaching? How do you do it? What's the story there? What's the difference between therapy and that, etc.? And it's a good question. And I am in the business now for many years of training relationship coaches. And no easy feat, as I've learned over the years, that it's difficult to show someone and teach someone how to do what I do with individuals and couples and groups. And a lot of our students are amazing and pick this up pretty quickly, and not everybody can do it. We always have a few people that seem to not quite get it. But the vast majority of our students get certified and go out into the world to help other people with their relationship challenges. And so in this episode, I'm going to just unpack a little more deeply the art and science of coaching. And this is coming from a former psychotherapist, right? I'm technically still a psychotherapist. It's a transcend and include thing for me, meaning everything I've been trained in, I include in my experience of working with people. So my master's degree in psychology, all my internships and work at mental health centers and crisis centers and residential treatment centers, all the clinical work I've done in private and public settings with groups and individuals, and then also all the teachers and mentors I've trained with over the years, and including Buddhist meditation teachers and other mindfulness teachers. And now I feel like I have a very consilient view of human behavior and a model called present-centered relationship coaching that encapsulates everything I've learned. So I'm both a therapist and a coach, but I train only coaches because to train people to become therapists, you have to work at a university or college. And I would be one teacher of dozens, right? In a 3-year social work degree, for example. So I've chosen to do coaching because I need help getting my the word out to create a more relational world, a world that my kids can live in where there's relational leaders everywhere. And unfortunately, there's a lot of grown-up children everywhere who don't know how to work through conflict, who can't take responsibility for their part in a dynamic, and who continue to blame and act out all over the place. So I've done my best over the years to train competent coaches to go out in the world and help people like you. And overall, it's been very successful. It's been challenging at times. Every year I have challenges with myself or other people in trying to transmit and articulate how to actually help another person with their relationships. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the art and science of that. The art, of course, is harder to pin down. Artists, and you're probably an artist to some degree, whether you're an actual musician or illustrator or graphic designer or dancer, whether you're call yourself an artist like that's pretty obvious you're an artist, or more the rest of us, maybe where it's more of a subtle art, where we're a real estate agent, or we're a nurse, or we're a doctor, or we're a mother. And there's a real art to how you do what you do, right? That's very hard to be taught, hard to teach in textbooks, and it comes with hard-won experience over many years. And it cultivates and builds upon your intuition, where you're sitting with a client and you have this intuitive hit to go right instead of left, or to say something because you just got some weird download came through as you're sitting with your client, and you just share it. And they are like, oh my God, that just changed my life. it hits them in a certain way. And you didn't learn that anywhere. It just sort of came through you. So there's a real art, just like there's an art to loving someone, and loving your children, loving your parents, loving your partner is a real art. And it's like loving my wife, for example, is not a fixed linear process. It's not something that I've just get good at and I can fall asleep and just kind of hit autoplay or something. That's actually when my marriage starts to tank or has challenges, is when I get sleepy or complacent. So any good artist knows you have to stay present to your inner life and the world around you, and tune in to what's occurring, and then listen and speak and, jam about what you're getting. And so my connection with my partner is a real art, probably more than anything. And the science of it, I'll talk about in a minute, where there's been some tactical moves I've done that have changed the game. But the art of it is, it's really beautiful. And I like that I have to stay awake and alert to that. So when you're a therapist or you're a coach and you're sitting with clients, or you're a doctor or a nurse and you're sitting with patients, or you're an acupuncturist and you're sitting with a client, there's a real tuning in that you have to do to help someone in a strong, strong way. And unfortunately, like doctors, for example, don't have time in modern sort of healthcare, in a crowded medical system where insurance is, kind of part of the problem. And doctors say they only get 15 minutes with you. And any good doctor knows that the art of healing, the magic of healing, comes from the relationship between the doctor and the patient. Often, my friend Jeremy Geffen, who passed away many years ago, wrote a book, The 7 Levels of Healing. And he was healing cancer with his patients, and he died of cancer, ironically. But that was the whole point of his book, was if we want to heal, doctors want to be more present, they got to tap into the art of the relationship and tuning into the connection and listening, deep listening, and forming a genuine bond or relationship with their patients. And, that takes time. Time meaning not 15 minutes, but an hour. After a few weeks, it's like, you start to build a relationship, and you start to get to know this person and their life and where they come from and who they are and what their stressors are and all the things. So tune into the art. And I'm going to be sharing more about that on a live class, which by the time this episode gets released, I will have already taught this masterclass. Hopefully you were there. And I will also be talking a lot about it in the relationship coach training that starts in September. Every year we train dozens and dozens of coaches in this art. How do we actually help someone? And I think it's a really beautiful, fun conversation to be in, because again, there's no summit. There's no, you can definitely achieve mastery. I feel like I have a lot of mastery in helping people, but like any black belt knows, that's when the work really starts, right? To continue to sharpen my sword, I have to keep growing and developing myself. And I never stop learning. My clients teach me and my students teach me all day long about how to do this more effectively, better, how to help my clients get better outcomes sooner, how to help them stay true to themselves. Hey, quick interruption here. Imagine a career that draws on your passion for personal growth and relationships, that harnesses your ability to support, challenge, and connect with others, that helps you develop as a person while you help others at the same time. What if you could earn a living while making an impact on thousands of people's lives, and even on the future of society and how we treat each other? It'd be pretty cool, right? Well, that job does exist. It's the job of a relationship coach, and I believe that the relationship coaches in the world are going to play a crucial role in the future of our culture, not only in the US, but abroad. 1 in 2 marriages still ends in divorce. 3 out of 5 Americans are lonely. We've got a serious loneliness epidemic and a looming mental health crisis that's, I think, already here. Couples that do well live 10 years longer than couples that don't, okay? According to the Gottmans, 80% of couples are headed in the direction of divorce within their first 4 to 5 years of marriage. Yikes. Okay, relationship stress is chronic disease. It creates chronic disease, in my opinion, from what I've read and the research I understand. I think it really hurts people everywhere. And I think the only way to really address this relationship, you could say relationship crisis, really, because it looks like a mental health crisis. It looks like a loneliness crisis. But we have to ask why. What is the root of this? Well, possibly how we raise kids. Possibly it's how we treat each other in our intimate, closest relationships. And the bottom line here is that people need help. They need your help. And our relationship coaches are slowly growing their businesses and doing well and feeling fulfilled and like they have a meaningful purpose and career where they get to work for themselves. So if you want to come be a part of this amazing training, you can apply right now. We're taking applications. That's open currently, and go to relationshipschool.com/RCT if you want to apply and get an interview. We do offer a portion of scholarships to people that enroll if money is an issue, and it's a big investment. But if you think of the return on the investment, what you get out of this training, you are going to transform as a person, as an individual, and you're going to become a better partner, better parent, etc. And you're going to learn how to effectively help people with their relationship challenges, thus leading to less loneliness, perhaps, and less mental health challenges for people out there. Okay. So come apply for our amazing training, relationshipschool.com/RCT. One of the things in the art, and then I'll move on to the science here, is this dance between client and coach, therapist and client. And coach and client, that dance is really spectacular because there's so much magic that can happen in the here and now. And I learned this from Fritz Perls and my mentors, Dewey, Dwayne, and Victoria, who taught me in a 3-year Gestalt training, the art of being with someone in the here and now. And my present-centered relationship coaching model heavily leans on Gestalt therapy and Gestalt principles. One of the main pillars of which is the here and now. If you are seeing a client, or a therapist or coach out in the world, and you're just you're a client here listening to this podcast, and they're not bringing in the here and now into your work, man, you are missing out. So an example of the here and now is I'm sitting with a client and they are saying they're angry and they're smiling. And so I say to them, hey, Bill, I notice you say you're angry, but you're smiling right now. And then I just reflect that back and they go, what? And I say, yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. In other words, your anger doesn't make sense to me because you're smiling right now, but you say you're so pissed off. And they're like, no one's ever said that to me. And then we're in an intimate moment and I can keep the fire on. I can turn up the heat if I want. And I can say things like, I don't trust you, client, right now, because you're full of shit. You're saying you're angry, but you're smiling or laughing. That makes no sense to me. It doesn't compute. It doesn't register. It's highly incongruent. And they're like, holy shit, no one has ever pointed this out to me. Oh my God. And they're like, really? So I say it again this time, Bill. And this time, actually see if you can make contact with your anger. If you are in fact angry. And then Bill slows down and takes a couple of breaths and is like, okay, yeah, I feel some heat in my chest. And then I say, great, look at me and say, I'm angry. And then Bill practices that. It's a little wonky at first. And finally, he makes contact with the anger and I feel him and he feels himself. And it's like, whoa, damn. And then I can say, Bill, do you see the difference between this anger and the anger you just said a minute ago, where you're deflecting and like laughing and you're angry at the same time? Oh, right. Right. So Bill, can you see that other people don't trust you because you're full of shit? You say one thing and your face says a completely different thing. How are we supposed to, like if I'm a child, how am I supposed to know what's trustworthy, like what you're saying? Because you're completely incongruent, man. And then Bill starts to wake up to this fact, and he starts to get in contact with his actual anger, and he's more congruent, and he's in a more powerful place, a more empowered place. And the anger now has a place to go and move, and it also has a place to be received. I can receive it. Whoever he's angry at can receive it if it's done in a skillful way. Then we can make progress. So the here and now is an art. And we've got to really develop this capacity as coaches, all right? And we will develop this capacity in my coaching training. Okay, let's go to the science, and then if we need to, we'll come back to the art for a minute. So just a couple pointers about science in general, right? Science is this art, you could say, of having an idea and then trying to find facts and data to support the idea. Or it could work the other way around, where we have we start to gather facts and data, and now we can start to come to conclusions about certain things based on facts and data. And I never actually loved science growing up. I think partly because I didn't have great science teachers. But now I love science. I feel like I'm a science nerd. My wife is even more of a science nerd. She's studying evolutionary biology and all kinds of things, neuroscience and stuff. I'm more of a dabbler, but I really am fascinated and intrigued by it. So what we know from the science, the data says, and let's spin off the longest longitudinal study on human development ever done at Harvard, now 85 plus years, going strong, which basically the conclusion says what we know about human happiness and fulfillment and life satisfaction is that your relationships are the central pillar of living a good life. And if you have compromised relationships, you will die sooner, in some cases 10 years or more sooner. You'll have more addictions, more disease, more mental health problems when you feel more isolated and alone and less connected to other people that actually care about you. So our life satisfaction is dictated by the quality of our relationships, our closest relationships, which I think is so powerful, right? The science says that. So in our training, we build off that. Like, look, if you want to have a good life, you have got to get your relationship house in order. You have got to learn how to do this part of your life better. You got to learn how to stop blaming. You got to learn how to work with your traumatized nervous system, the scared animal in you, and all the things that you do under stress that create problems in your life. You've got to figure this part out if you want to live a good, long life, okay, into old age. And again, it's not just about having friends, okay? I've done this experiment. In my 20s, I had lots of friends, but I felt completely alone. So we're not talking about belonging where I belong to a friend group, I belong to a community, I belong to whatever, but I feel completely alone and like no one really knows who I actually am. Or I'm in a marriage, so I belong, I have a partner, but I feel completely alone. That's not what they're talking about in the Harvard study, because that's not a good relationship, right? A good relationship is where you feel seen and known by the other person, and they feel seen and known by you, and you continue to reveal your inner life, and it's okay to be messy and failing and falling down, and you're still loved by this person, and vice versa, right? So another science piece of relationships that we now know is from the ACEs study, and there's so many more studies. And the ACEs study, to remind you, stands for the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. Okay, it's a landmark research project conducted by the Kaiser Permanente. Jeez, that was a tongue twister. Anthony Finetti, I think. I might butcher that name. He was the lead researcher on this. And the study surveyed over 17,000 participants asking about 10 specific adverse experiences, including abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction. And originally it was a weight loss study. And he found that of the women, there were mostly women in the study, that his weight loss treatment worked, but then a certain percentage of the women would come back having gained all the weight back. So he went more in depth in the interviews, and he found that almost all of them were sexually abused as children. And the weight was one way to protect themselves. So this study is phenomenal in terms of its scope and its also basic principle here, which is if you had one or more on an ACEs score of 0 to 10, you are likely to have problems later in life, like addiction, mental health problems, relationship problems. Your brain development is slower. You don't learn as well. You can't retain the information. Your grades are lower in college, and on and on. We also know this now of secure attachment through Dan Siegel's work, that securely attached kids grow up and outperform insecurely attached kids on basically in every area of life. The science and the data shows this. So we can now use this to inform and educate people like, look, you want to get this part of your life dialed. And because it feels good, most importantly, it's not because you should be afraid of dying sooner. It's because it just feels good to be connected to yourself and your fellow humans. It just feels good, you know? You deserve that. We all deserve that. Yo. As you know, I've dedicated my life to helping people with their relationships, right? I want to solve this problem so that all of you can work through your differences and have fulfilling, amazing, badass partnerships and relationships, family, coworkers, friends, whoever. And I have trained a ton of relationship coaches, almost 100 certified relationship coaches, to help you specifically work through your relationship challenges. So I want to invite you to a special deal we're offering to the podcast listener where you can get 50% off your first month of coaching with one of our amazing relationship coaches. Okay, if you're tired of therapy, it feels like that's going around in a circle, or you want to actually set goals and accomplish your relationship goals, hire a relationship coach. Okay, go to relationshipschool.com/get coaching now, and then use the coupon code FIRST50 to get the 50% deal off your first month of relationship coaching. Super psyched to have our amazing coaches serve you and help you get to the next level. So the ACEs study is one of many studies. Attachment scientists like Dr. Dan Siegel have done a tremendous amount of research here, and all of his books really speak to it in terms of secure attachment versus insecure attachment and how much better we do throughout life when we raise kids in a good way. And kids are raised in a not so much trauma-free environment, but an environment where trauma gets repaired. That's kind of what we're after, because it's kind of hard to have a trauma-free life in this world. But what we can have is good repair after trauma and after conflict and after challenges, right, between people. That's what actually builds the security. We also know we can rewire our brains. Dr. Rick Hansen talks about this, who I've interviewed on the podcast, and Dr. Dan Siegel, that we can rewire our brains and myelinate new pathways into old age by creating new habits and behaviors that strengthen and support a strong sense of self and self in relationship to other. And then that equates to strong relationships. So, relationship coaching is an art and it's a science. And ideally, you want to hire relationship coaches, not so much talk therapists, to get help with this part of your life that understand the art and the science. And you as a client are like, oh yeah, this makes a lot of sense to me. And, the science is like, we can read and learn about it. We never stop growing and learning and studying relationships. And then the art is we practice all the time, just like a violin, just like the tango, just like baking, or if we're a chef, we practice so that we can begin to master this. And when you step into mastery, the art is just kind of comes out of you and you have your own unique style and flavor. And eventually you as a coach will draw in certain clients that resonate with your artistry, with your style, right? I have a style that really works for some people and it doesn't work for others. Who cares, right? I'm not trying to help the people that don't resonate with my style. But the more I give myself permission to be me, the more I get to do my art and how I work with people. Okay, because it very much is an art for me. All right. Okay, hopefully this is just a high level on the art of relationship coaching. And again, if you want to study this with me and a bunch of amazing humans, you can go to relationshipschool.com/RCT. And there you can find the application, you can apply. We interview everybody that comes through our training because we want to make sure they're a good fit. It's essential that we find people who are serious about doing this work and serious about helping others and serious also about not blaming other people. That is a very limited way to live. So if you want to move through some of your own challenges here and you want to become an artist of people and with very heavily backed science to support it, come check us out. I think we run the most difficult, most rigorous, most intense, and most powerful, meaningful course on the planet. I really believe that. I just haven't heard of anything like our coaches training. And not everybody makes it. That's why it's difficult. It's very demanding. And if you're kind of longing for a hero's journey and to get more engaged in a deeper aspect of your life, I would encourage you to come to this training. And, something I didn't talk about in the art and science piece that's specific to our training is it's a personal growth journey. It's a hero's journey. And you will go through an incredible transformation that you're possibly longing to have, to do for yourself. And the kind of transformation that puts you more in contact with your deeper essence, not farther away from yourself, right? We're not trying to change to get other people to like us. We're trying to transform and deepen into who we actually are, because some of us have lost sight of who we are. Given our wounds in childhood, we were taught and told and learned to not be ourselves because that's problematic. So we had to develop all these strategies, right? And I write about this in my book. And the work is to come back home to yourself. And I tell our coaches on the first day of the training, your job is to help people come back home to themselves. That's your job. Because your clients are going to come in with all kinds of complaints. My partner, blah, 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 and they're bitching about what this, and they're feeling like a victim over here. And it's like, look, our North Star is to help people come back home to who they are. Because that's where the fulfillment is in life. And good relationships allow you to be yourself, because you can't be fulfilled when you're trying to be someone you're not. And you're in a strategy and you're trying to get people to like you, or you're just trying to fit in and belong, but no one really knows you. That ain't fulfillment, right? So our style of relationship coaching is deep and deeply meaningful. We want to help grow humans up into becoming the beautiful, powerful adults that they are, so that they can live inside of fulfilling, connected, secure relationships. Because there's so much juice in that. Yeah. All right. Please do apply. All right. If there's any longing in you, any hint and whisperings, if you're listening to this feeling a certain something, I really encourage you to apply. We only run this training once a year. I'm personally looking for just warriors who want to make the journey to be ourselves, to come back home to who we are. That's what this course is about. And we're going to help other people do that along the way while we're doing our own journey. And so don't be fucking telling me, oh, I don't have my relationship life together, so how would I possibly help someone? You help someone, helping someone else keeps you on task to helping yourself, because it feels really bad to be a fraud, right? To help someone and not have your own shit together. So it's like, I'm going to help this person as a way to be accountable to my own work and my own journey. And I found that to be incredibly, it tethers me, right, to my own path and to staying deep inside my integrity. Because we all drift. So if you want that level of beauty and connection, power and transformation, please come check us out, relationshipschool.com/RCT.